What advice would you give to journalists who've been schooled in old-fashioned news reporting style if they wanted to write in a more literary fashion?
Well, I suppose if you were talking about something like length, I mean, you know, in a short form newspaper journalism, your key priority is to get information across and get it across quickly in a way that's not confusing, and you know, the kind of adage that you sort of always cut from the bottom when you're cutting a piece of news reporting doesn't kind of apply. So you really need, I suppose, to think first and foremost about the structure of something. You need to think, how are you going to keep someone interested for 4, 6, 10,000 words, or however long you're writing. And you need to think about the sensibility. Somebody couldn't read, unless you're reading an official report because you have to. You wouldn't read 10,000 words of a piece unless there was something about the voice that was keeping you doing that. So I would say you need to really to completely sort of forget not basic reporting principles, because they still apply, but you really need to think that the words and the sentences are important now.
If you were to recommend some really good narrative non-fiction that we could read and study the style and the approach of that, what would you perhaps go for? I mean, Granta is very associated with Ryszard Kapuscinski.
Yes, and that would be, I mean, he was just an original, and there you sort of had someone who was just determined to kind of witness what was going on, and I would absolutely recommend him. I think I would just try to read some. I just try to read some non-fiction. I'm sorry, I actually don't have names off the top of my head. I'm not good at it, but I would look at some serious foreign correspondence. I would try to read as widely out of your own area of interest in a way. I wouldn't read something that you knew very much about, and just kind of see how it's done.
Common errors in stylistics on that boundary, that interesting boundary between fiction and non-fiction?
Yes. Common errors. Stock phrases, I think, cliche, repetition, and just a kind of what I think of as just a sort of mimicking of something that you think is successful. And you know, I was thinking earlier about the memoir genre, for example, which has become incredibly popular. There are some really brilliant literary memoirs that have been written in the last 10 or 20 years that are among the best books to have been written. There are now an awful lot of things that are quite like them, but they're not them. So I think this kind of, you just need to be original. And you need to be original in conveying your own sensibility. And I think when somebody is trying to sound like someone else, that is perhaps the most, or not necessarily one person, but they think, now I need to write like this. I think that's perhaps the most common error.
Last question, if I may. Very popular with my students is what I would describe as gonzo journalism. The kind of Hunter S. Thompson performance journalism or performance writing, where the kind of narrative stars yourself, you know. You know, I go here, I go there.
Yep.
What do you think about that type of writing? Well,
that's sort of back a little bit to, in a way, what I was saying. It was brilliant, but he did that, and you need to do something else. Putting yourself into a narrative is not just a matter of kind of saying, I did this, I did that. It's about your sensibility too. And I think it's something that's approached with caution, because you have to be really brilliant at it. But I also think there are a lot of different ways of doing it, and I don't think it's necessary to kind of fight shy of doing it. Bring yourself into something. Tell people how you feel, what you thought, what you saw. But remember that the reader doesn't know you, and your voice has to be interesting to them. And your voice is what they're getting, not you. They're not going to meet you.
But I notice in the current issue you have Andrew Martin.
Yes.
He's a brilliant writer, I think.
Yes.
And very, very funny.
Yes, and that was, I enjoyed that piece very much because it was a piece of humour.
He does this kind of gonzo, very mundane things, like going shopping.
Yes, exactly. And the piece he's written in the current issue of Granta is about why no one smokes a pipe anymore. It doesn't sound very promising. It's all about him. It's a different kind of thing. It's he finds out a lot actually, but it's a piece of humorous writing that is nonetheless exceptionally sort of proficient. And you're right. That kind of mundane gonzo is a good. I think you've coined a new term there.